We live in a world ruled by tyranny, where knowledge is suppressed and ignorance is glorified. A world where propaganda and misinformation travel the airways at the speed of lies. But in the midst of the violence and chaos, a great awakening is taking place. And as the media empires continue to collapse, a new network is forming. A network of truth, a network of courage, a network of awareness. Peace and greetings. You are now tuned into the Network of Awareness podcast radio station, where we examine current events, politics, health, finance, and topics of cultural relevance in America and throughout the world, while bringing you insightful interviews with guests that will both educate and inspire you. And now, your host of the Network of Awareness podcast radio station, ORRA the Informationalist.
Nothing like
Please just tell me what's happening to me in plain English without the mumbo jumbo.
My aura is a network full of awareness and gifts like ORRA, the informationalist.
How you doing? How you doing?
All right, peace and greetings, brothers and sisters and peoples from around the world. You're now tuned in to the live broadcast of the Network of Awareness. And it is Testament Thursday, and we got another special guest for you on this live broadcast. It's a guest that I was very excited to bring on to the show. And let me tell you a little bit about Dave Combs before we bring him on to the show. Now, we are streaming today on YouTube, Twitter, and also now on Facebook, on the Facebook page of the Network of Awareness. So for all the people that are following me on there from yesterday when we set it up, hope you enjoyed this live broadcast. And then, of course, we're also broadcasting audibly on Spreaker. So let's tell you a little bit about Dave Combs before we bring him on. He is a songwriter, photographer, entrepreneur, and author with 4 decades of experience writing over 120 songs, people, and creating 14 albums of soothing, relaxing, instrumental piano music. Now, that's not his music in the background, but we will be playing some of his music very soon. His songwriting began with the now popular standard Rachel's Song, and his soothing, relaxing music has been played millions of times worldwide on the radio, satellite, and all internet streaming media, and it continues to touch the lives of millions of people all over the world. He's also the author of the best-selling new book, Touched by the Music, How the Story and Music of Rachel's Song Can Change Your Life. So, brothers and sisters, let's bring Dave Combs onto the show so we can get his testimony and get to know him a little bit better. Okay.
There we go.
All right.
There we go.
Giving all praises, brother. Welcome to the show, Mr. Dave Combs. How you doing today, sir?
I'm doing great, Orra. It's so good to see you, and we're going to have a lot of fun today.
Absolutely. Absolutely. We're going to have tons of fun. So Dave, you have quite a story about your life's journey and how you've come to this very successful music career and how you've been able to impact a lot of people's lives from around the world. And I know you and I, when before we set this interview up, we had a private chat about some of the things you were doing before you had this I'm just going to use the word awakening or spiritual compelling to really pursue what you were truly passionate about, which is this music. And you did have a career before this. So can you let the listeners know some of the things that you were doing before you embarked on this beautiful music career?
I'd be happy to. Before I wrote my first song, that was in 1981. Beginning in 1969, I graduated college with a math and physics degree and started work as a computer programmer for a company called Western Electric, which later became AT&T. And so my career training was in the technology field. I loved mathematics and physics, and I was always good with problem solving with math and computers. And so that was my beginning career. But all along the way, I had an underpinning of music. My family, where I grew up in East Tennessee, was a very musical part of the country. If you're familiar with Tennessee, everybody knows Dolly Parton and all those East Tennessee musicians. And so I grew up around music, and I loved singing in the choir. I loved playing the piano. So music was a big part of it. My mother and father both played the piano. My grandmother Combs, she played the old pump organ before electricity. They had an organ that you pumped the air through it with your feet on the bellows. But she played that, and an old auto harp was her instrument. And so I grew up with family and friends and church members and everybody around with music. But my career was from 1969 till actually I quit my job in 1992. So for 22 and a half years, I had a full-time career job in technology. And it was along that way that my interest in music, the creativity boiled to the top, I guess you could say, when I wrote this first song, Rachel's Song. And I wrote the tune in 1981 and named it for our godchild in 1983, and then recorded it as a demo in Nashville, Tennessee in 1986. So that was the beginnings of my transition from my technical full-time career in AT&T over to my music. So that transition took place over several years. Anybody that's an entrepreneur knows that success doesn't happen overnight. You got to have a lot of work and a lot of trial and error. But in my case, I wrote the one song, and then the recording of it became so popular on the radio that people were clamoring for the music. And so I ended up going back to Nashville, recording more music, and produced a whole album, and then produced that and available as a cassette tape and a CD so people could purchase it. And then that led to the business of trying to sell my music around the country. And I didn't have any success in the big box music stores. They never heard of me, Dave Combs, and instrumental music was not their thing anyway. So I basically invented or created my own marketing channel for my music through gift shops. Because in the gift shop world, you walk into let's say you're on vacation in the Gatlinburg, Tennessee, and you walk in this beautiful gift shop and it smells good, it looks good, and you more than likely you're going to hear pretty music playing in the background. Well, it was that environment that I knew was the correct mixture for my music. When you hear it, people wanted to buy it. So I basically found gift shops all over the country that would play and sell my music. And now they call it the play and sell market. Everybody seems to do it now, but it was me and two other musicians back in the 80s that invented this way of selling music. And so that was the beginning. And I ended up with over 1,000 gift shops over the entire country playing and selling my music. And it was along that journey that the income from my sales of my music overtook my income from AT&T, and I was able to transition out of my full-time job into doing my music full-time, which is kind of, for an entrepreneur, that's a very comfortable place to be. A lot of times it's not that way. You have to kind of make a leap of faith. But in this case, my leap was one from one where I was making really good money, but to another one where I was making even more money. So that's the transition from one song to over 120 songs, 14 albums. I went back to Nashville every year and recorded another album with Gary Prim for about 15 years. And so it was a wonderful journey of all those recording sessions. I've recorded over 170 songs. Of course, I didn't write all of those. A lot of them are favorite hymns or popular songs. But going back to the studio for a week every year was kind of like going on vacation. It was just the highlight of the year to go into the studio and listen to Gary Prim arrange and perform the music and walk out at the end of the week with a beautiful new album. And so that's and anybody that's not been into a recording studio, I encourage you to find a way to go visit one and perhaps listen in on somebody's recording session, because there's a lot of musical magic that takes place in those studios.
Absolutely. That's why I called this episode the Spirit of Creativity, because that spirit of creativity and ingenuity was really strong on you back then, for you to be so revolutionary in creating this new system of selling music. And that's very entrepreneurial. And let's talk about the music. When did you write your first song, and how did your first song come to be when you wrote it? How and when did you get inspired to write your very, very first song?
Well, all of my life, my adult life anyway, when I would come home from work, my usual way to relax is to sit down at my piano and just play something. That's my outlet for stress and just getting my mind cleared and doing something creative. And so in January of 1981, I sat down at my piano one evening, coming home from work, and I started playing this song. Now, it was not a song that I had thought of or one I knew, I heard on the radio or anything. I just started playing it. And I did not sit down and intend to write a song. I didn't even think of it as writing a song. I just played it, and I played it. It never changed from the first notes that I played to the very end of the song. It was always that. The integrity of the song was always there. And so I played that, and I loved the way it sounded, and I didn't think much about it. My wife came home from her job a couple of days later, and she came in the door and says, "Dave, what is the name of this song that I've had humming in my head all day long?" You know how you get an earworm stuck in there and you can't get it off your mind. So she hummed a little bit of this song. And I said, "Well, it doesn't have a name." And she said, "It doesn't? You play it on the piano all the time." I said, "Yeah, but it's just something I guess I just made up." Well, she got all excited and said, "Well, that's incredible. Have you written it down?" No, I've got it up in my mind. It's not going anywhere. And she says, "Oh no, you're going to write that down, because something might happen to you and that song would be gone. I'd never remember how to replay it." So I said, "Okay, I will." So I wrote it down on a piece of paper. In fact, I have, for those of you watching the episode, I have here the actual piece of paper I wrote it down on. And you can see at the top, it just says copyright David M. Combs, 1981. And it's just in the key of C, 4/4 time. And it's got the melody and the chords that go with it. And the chords, are C, A minor, D minor ninth, D minor seventh, and G7 and so forth. So it's a very simple melody. And then it has a chorus that goes to the key of the chord of F, and then F minor, and then back to C and A minor and so forth. But that was the music that I wrote down, and I put it back in the piano bench, and we tried to think of a name for it. Nothing ever fit. So I'd play it every once in a while for her and for people. And 2 years later, some friends of ours had a little baby girl named Rachel, and their parents asked me and Linda to be her godparents. And so we accepted, of course. And at little Rachel's christening service, Linda and I are sitting there with the family and the minister and the church. And at the end of the formal part of the service, I had noticed all along there was a grand piano sitting at the front of this church. Caught my eye, just like the piano that's over your shoulder there and over my shoulder here. And so I punched Linda and I said, "Hey, what if I played this song now, as that we've been trying to think of a name for, as part of this service?" She said, "That's a great idea." So I went up to the family and minister and asked if I could play a song on the piano. And they, of course, said yes. And so I walked over to the piano, sat down, and started playing this song. And I got through about most of it, and I kept hearing in the background people clearing their throat and few sniffles here and there, and I noticed that even my eyes were getting a little bit weepy. And it's a very highly emotional experience anyway, in a little christening service.
Right.
So at the end of my playing the song, even before the notes had completely died away, I said, from now on, this song will be called Rachel's Song in her honor. And that's how it got its name, and it's been the perfect name ever since.
It's interesting how that happened in the church, how the Most High has his hands on things and how things come to be through the grace of the Most High God. Let's do this. Why don't we play Rachel's song for the listeners on this broadcast? So, brothers and sisters, we're going to listen to Rachel's song. It's about 3 minutes and 51 seconds. So enjoy. It's a beautiful song. And now we get to experience what Brother Dave had was compelled to name this song and why, and now you get a better understanding. And so let's take a listen.
You are now tuned in to the Network of Awareness.
Beautiful song. Beautiful song. Where did you learn how to write music? Was it your early days in the church, or did you learn it in school? Where did you learn how to read and write music?
Well, as a kid, like a lot of young kids, I took piano lessons as 8 or 9 year old for a couple of years. And so I learned how to read music, basically. And then there's an interesting story of how I actually learned how to be more proficient at playing the piano and music. And it has a lot to do with right where you are, or I think we talked about this in our previous conversation. I lived for my junior year in high school in Bradenton, Florida. I went to Southeast High School, and but during the summer before the school I started, my father worked for Tropicana Products, and everybody in Florida knows Tropicana. That's the orange juice company.
Yes. Well, shout outs to Manatee County, by the way.
Yeah, it was a big employer in Manatee County. And my father worked for Tropicana, and it was owned by Mr. Anthony Rossi. It was privately owned back then. And Mr. Rossi was a very strong Christian man, deacon in the church, and they imported a lot of oranges from Honduras, and these oranges would come across in ships, and the ships would dock in the Tampa Bay. And of course, the crew from Honduras could not disembark from the ship; they had to stay on the ship. And so Mr. Rossi was determined that the crew of those ships would have a church service on Sunday morning, and so he commissioned my father and his nephew Russell Rigler and myself to go out on the ships and do a Bible study and some singing and whatever on the ships. So that summer, I would they had an old portable pump organ. It was a World War II instrument that it folded up and you could carry it around, and we carried it up on the ship and unfolded it and set it up for me to play the hymns on this old pump organ. And so at the beginning of the summer, I was not very good at playing hymns, but that was my motivation. So during the week when it was hot and humid, we didn't have air conditioning. So I was inside and I would be playing the piano, and then I'd get tired of that sound. I'd go over on the pump organ, play it for a while, but I practiced hymns all that summer. And so my motivation to play hymns as well as I did at the end of the summer was because I played on the Tropicana juice ships in Tampa Bay, Florida. And so I think I'm the only person in the world that learned how to play the piano on the deck of a ship in Tampa Bay, Florida. But that was my learning of that. So I was kind of self-taught after just practicing. Anything you can do, you can practice it enough and learn on your own. You don't necessarily have to go to Juilliard to be a professional musician. You can practice and pick it up from other musicians and that kind of thing. So I learned music from my father. He played by ear. He didn't read music very well, but so I practiced and played and learned how to read music on my own pretty much from that point forward.
Amazing. So my biggest following and listenership is in the state of Florida. So for all the Floridians that are listening, you just got a fun fact history lesson on how Dave Combs played music back in the days in Manatee County. And shout outs to everybody in the Tampa Bay area here listening in, tuning in. So let's talk about your entrepreneurialism a little bit. You are obviously an entrepreneur. You took the time to do something. You took risk, and those risks rewarded you greatly with doing the whole music in the gift shops and targeting the gift shops. What advice do you have for people that are actually entrepreneurs starting out now and people that are interested in becoming entrepreneurs? What would you say to them?
Well, the main thing is that you kind of keep your dream in front of you, and you stay focused. Focus on what it is you're trying to accomplish. If it's music or writing or whatever it is, stay focused on it. And also don't let anybody steal your dream. Don't let anybody tell you can't be done.
Right.
If they do, you just find somebody, you find you some new friends.
That's right.
But surround yourself with people who are going to support what you're doing. Now, I was very fortunate in that my family, my friends, and people that I knew loved my music, and they were extremely supportive and encouraging and willing to help. And anytime that I needed advice on what to do next with something, it seemed that always that door opened for me. I didn't have to force it. The person that I needed to meet suddenly appeared in my life, like meeting Gary Prim in the studio in 1986. That was a godsend. And he was he was a very gifted musician in Nashville. And he and I, from that one song, the song that you heard playing is the original demo recording made by Gary Prim for me in Nashville in 1986. Has not been remastered, remixed, anything. And in my book, I spend a lot of time walking you through that recording session. It's a lot. I wanted to bring you into the studio with me for the recording of that song. And so in the book, I go to great detail about how we recorded that song. And so when you listen to the song, maybe after reading the story and listen to it again, then you will say, oh, there's where he kicked in the electric piano. There's where the strings came in. And here's where he changed keys in the middle and all that kind of thing. So, but anyway, you're back to your question about how as an entrepreneur, you need to proceed. Surround yourself with people who perhaps have the gifts that you don't have. Like Gary is the studio musician. I'm the composer. So we complement each other in that aspect. So if you're a writer, then you're going to probably have to find yourself a good editor. So surround yourself with people who will help you bring your whatever it is you're trying to produce, your vision, to move it forward and take action. I guess that's the one word that I always give people advice is when you have an idea or a concept of something, don't just think about it all day long. Take some action. And only with action will things move forward. And it may not always work out exactly as you planned. Then just back up and say, well, that didn't work. I'll try something else. But never just sit still and don't take any action. You got to move it forward with some action.
Absolutely. In being a man of faith like yourself, I wanted to ask you a question. With the scriptures teaches us, it gives us knowledge, it gives us wisdom and understanding. The Most High gives us that, and also through Christ and through his walk. And having a lot of knowledge is great, but if you don't apply that knowledge, then you have no charity. And you seem to be a man that's been very charitable with the knowledge, wisdom, and understanding that you have spiritually. So I wanted to ask you, what does charity mean to you? And how, as far as what charity means to you, how have you applied that in your life?
Well, I think to me, charity means sharing your gift. You don't keep it to yourself. Everybody has gifts. Some people have many, many gifts, but whatever gifts you have, don't keep them to yourself. Share them with other people. And it's only through the giving away of your gifts do you basically fulfill your life. And so to me, it's always been finding ways to give away or share my music, for example, with the world. It started out with playing it on the radio, and the people that heard it on the radio liked it and wanted to hear more. And then as of, when CDs and cassette tapes and all that kind of went away and we went into the digital world, we're into the world of downloads and streaming. So today, the giving away happens through the streaming of music all over the internet, through all of the different platforms. We are so blessed to have so many platforms to share, not only visually with all the platforms like for this podcast is on, but even the streaming of the music through Pandora and Spotify and iHeartRadio. All of those media are available around the world instantaneously by anybody that has access to the internet. So to me, the charity begins with a willingness to share your music or your gift with the world. And if you're lucky enough to have an income that comes in from it, share some of the benefits of your income through. In our case, we have some scholarships that we've created through our music at Appalachian State University, High Point University, East Tennessee State University, and Wake Forest University. We have scholarships. So you find ways to give back and share your blessings with whatever you're blessed with other people. So to me, that's kind of our goal with charity.
Well said, sir. You answered that very well. Reminds me of a podcast that we now have on the network of awareness. We have a church now called the Body of Christ Church with some wonderful brothers and sisters that are spread throughout the world. And we have a podcast now called the Council on Christ Relations. And they're doing such a wonderful job. And it's something that I started for them. And now it gets to the revenue that it will slowly but surely generate through monetization will now go as a donation towards the church and funding all their events and functions and helping them grow as far as having places to congregate. So you're absolutely right that we have to share our gifts amongst each other, because to keep it to ourselves is not going to do anybody any good. That's what we were given those gifts for. Now, you mentioned about the streaming. How has the move to digital streaming of music changed your music business?
Well, the model for music has drastically changed. Go back in history to the days when I was producing cassette tapes and CDs. We had a physical product to sell, and I was selling boatloads of them through the gift shops. Well, fast forward to today, the products that we have are not physical anymore. I mean, you can buy a CD, but very few people do. CDs are kind of going the way of cassette tapes and other things, that everything is digital. So the business model for the musician has drastically changed. Making money from the physical sale of products is just not going to happen these days. You have to find a way to monetize your music in other ways. There are many ways to monetize music through the use of music on commercials. And anytime you turn on the TV or radio, in the background, you're always going to hear music. Well, that music had to come from somewhere. And so there are people who make a good living creating music for the media. But in my case, my music is basically instrumental songs. And the only outlet for my instrumental songs is through the streaming of those songs and over the internet. And of course, there's the printed sheet music as well. I need to mention that for those that play the piano, I do have 11 piano music books of my music that I've recorded. And that does okay, but that's not the primary source of income for me. The main source of income is through the streaming of the music over the internet. Now, it is not the business, the profitability that it used to be with the physical sales. I'll give you an example. For me to make 1 penny of royalty on a streaming of my music, one of my songs has to stream 5 times to get 1 penny to me of a royalty. Now you do the math and you figure out how many times did something have to stream for some musician to make, say, $50,000 or $100,000. You do the math. It is way up there in the millions and millions of times. So that business model has drastically turned on its head the model of selling music, where we used to make a really good living selling CDs and cassette tapes.
Right.
That's gone away.
Through direct sales, right?
Yes. So it's all upside down. And I guess I'm fortunate that I had my music out in the digital world as soon as it happened. And so I was there as a presence as it grew along with iTunes, as it came along, and Pandora as it came along, got my music there, and Spotify and so forth. But another aspect is that the technology has changed to where anybody can sit in their home with a laptop computer and record a high fidelity quality album of music without having to pay the thousands and thousands of dollars for a recording studio somewhere in LA or Nashville or someplace. So the ability to record music and put it out there is greatly improved. And that also means there's more competition. Now there's just thousands of new songs and new albums that are released almost every day over the internet.
Right.
It's just like in the world of podcasts. I don't know, what's the latest number on podcasts? It's probably over 5 million around the world. And the competition for the viewership and ears to watch a podcast is very competitive. So there's a lot of competition.
Yeah, it's actually less than that, because what I found out is that even though there's a lot of podcasters, a lot of them cancel out before they even complete their 10th episode.
Yep, you're
which
right.
I found interesting. So in the podcasting world, there's only actually several thousands of podcasts that are actually successful and thriving and, you know, and actually doing well. So it's a big community, but a lot of people just cancel out. It's a lot of attrition. So it's only a small group. And I'm considered in that group I'm more in the 20 to 30 percentile as far as my success as present day, because I'm close to 500 episodes and now podcasting for 3 years. But it's very interesting how that all works out. Let's talk about your book. Now, you have a best-selling book, and your best-selling book is called Touched by the Music, How the Story and Music of Rachel's Song Can Change Your Life. So can you let the listeners know what prompted you to write your book and what it's all about?
Well, like the rest of us in the world, a couple of years ago, we were all sitting around at home when the pandemic hit, and everybody's saying, well, I can't go out to eat, can't go do this. I'm kind of locked at home here. What are we going to do? Well, my wife and I were sitting there, and we've been thinking about this for quite a while. I had gotten letters from people all over the world, over 50,000 letters from people about my music, many of whom tell me their stories. And I'd done programs with telling my stories about my music to Kiwanis clubs and that kind of thing. And people would say, well, that's interesting. You ought to write a book. Well, we talked about this writing a book for a long time. And Linda and I were sitting there one evening, and she says, well, here we are. What are we going to do? Can't go anywhere. Why don't you get your laptop out and let's start writing that book we've been talking about? And so I did. I said, all right, I'll do it. So we started compiling my stories. And, you know, I'm not a professional writer. And so I had to really work hard at my storytelling abilities. And I learned a lot from that process. But I have tons and tons of stories. In fact, I had more stories than I could put in the book. I had to pare some of them out. But along the way, I found there were people in the book writing business that will help you, not just editors, but there are coaches and people. The fellow that I met was Steve Harrison. He has a company that's what he does, is helps people bring a book into life. Well, and Steve introduced me to a fellow that I know everybody's going to recognize, and that is Jack Canfield, who is the co-author of the Chicken Soup for the Soul books. Well, Jack and I became acquainted. I went to one of his master classes, and he loved Rachel's song. I mean, he just flipped out over the song, and he loved my stories. He's a storyteller anyway. And so he says, Dave, you got a gold mine here of stories. You got to get your book written. And I said, okay, Jack, I'll write it. Now, if I write it, will you agree to write the foreword to my book? He kind of chuckled and he says, well, Dave, you write it first and then I'll see. Well, I did write the book. It took me about 9 months to get the stories together and get it all organized, designed, and everything. And I sent it to Jack, and he absolutely loved it. And he wrote the foreword to my book. I'm so honored that he did that. So it was a 9-month process. I guess it's kind of like having a baby. It took me 9 months to have my book, but it was a wonderful process of educating me and getting the book out. And people that read the stories now can understand the inspiration that went behind my music and some of the details of how it happened. And so for an entrepreneur, whether it's music or anything, it's a book about entrepreneurship and taking something from a concept all the way to the fulfillment and the end product. And it was a lot of fun to write the book. And it was a #1 bestseller in several categories on Amazon, and it's still doing real well. So I encourage people to go to Amazon and either buy the paperback, or you can go, if you're into Audible, you can listen to me read it to you on Audible for 8 hours, or you can buy a Kindle version anyway.
Wow, amazing. Dave, you don't mind me asking, how old are you?
I am 75, be 76 here in a couple of months.
Oh, wow. All praises. So you're pretty much around my parents' age. My mom is 75. And the reason why I asked you that question, Dave, is because you're 75, going to be 76 years old. You've accomplished a lot in your life, and you continue to do so. Can you let the listeners know, because music is very powerful. Music comes from the Most High God, and even though it can get manipulated and stuff like that, and they can be really trashy, wicked music, but there is also very benevolent, positive, uplifting music, which is definitely the music that you have. Can you explain to the listeners the medical connections between instrumental music and how it can benefit one's health and well-being?
Well, I'm glad you asked that, because there is a large and growing body of research into just that subject. A lot of people have studied, what is the effect of various kinds of music on healing and different health issues. And everybody knows that stress is always called the silent killer.
Right.
And so to be able, anything that will reduce stress, and for me, reducing stress always translated into listening to really soothing, relaxing music. If you want to calm yourself down and lower your heart rate a little bit, lower your blood pressure, just put on your headset like you've got on there and put on some good, soothing, relaxing instrumental music. Close your eyes and let the music take you to a place where you'll just be amazed at the amount of calming it has. But yes, there are lots of research studies that you can Google and find tons of articles about how they've studied and shown that listening to music like mine can literally reduce your stress level. And they measure it through all these stress hormones that are in your blood. They measure your heart rate, your blood pressure, all those kind of things. And all those are positive impacts on your health. And so I've gotten anecdotally letters from people all over the world that told me how my music, and that, they weren't trying to speak scientifically. They were just saying, here's what your music did for me. And I've had letters from alcoholics, for example, that said that my music when they played it, allowed them to get a peaceful night's sleep and to maintain their sobriety. And so they attribute that listening to my music, Rachel's song in particular, helped them maintain their sobriety. And so there's people who are in pain. I've gotten letters from people who said that the music really helped relieve their chronic pain issues. So there's all kinds of anecdotal stories about how the music has a positive impact on people's health and on their lives.
Wow, amazing. And it's I believe that it's probably one of the main reasons that it's kept you going for this long, to be a man at 75 years old doing some amazing things, because there's not a lot of people your age living the type of life you're living and being able to do much of anything at all. A lot of them are withering away because of stress and, heart conditions and many other illnesses. So your life is truly a blessing. So with that being said, let's wrap things up. And the last thing I wanted to ask you, is there anything that you want to leave the listeners with in concluding this episode on the spirit of creativity? And you could take as long as you want.
Well, the main thing I want to leave folks with is the knowledge that they can, after this episode ends, they can always find my music either through going to my website at combsmusic.com, or simply, like most of us do today, all of us have Siri and Alexa and Google and all these speaker boxes. All you have to do is say, hey, so-and-so, play Rachel's song by Gary Prim, and instantly there'll come Rachel's song playing on the speaker. But you can listen to my music on any of those anytime, and the artist's name is Gary Prim. All these services identify the songs with the artist. I'm the composer, Dave Combs, but Gary Prim is the artist. So if you'll say, play some music by Gary Prim, and you'll be blessed with some music coming on your speakers or your headset or wherever you are with listening to my music. And also, if you play the music on the piano or whatever, go to my website and you can download instantly sheet music for any of my albums. I have 11 piano music book albums that you can download off of Sheet Music Plus. And so take advantage of access to my music, and I hope that my music will bless your lives as much as it has all all the thousands and millions of other people that I've heard from over the years.
Well said. And I'm definitely going to be playing your music. I'm actually, when I end this episode, I'm going to play Rachel's song again for the outro, and then play some of your other music as my intros and outros when I introduce people or, have my solo casting going. So I'm very grateful that I got to meet you, to be able to play that music and also listen to it on when I'm doing my work, because I love to listen to instrumentals. I play instrumentals all the time. So I want to thank you for coming on to the show, Dave. Do appreciate your time and all of your wisdom and knowledge and the beautiful things that you've been able to do throughout the world with your music. And, I'm going to give you a 5-star rating, of course, right after this episode's over on Podmatch. And, of course, hopefully the Podmatch will send you the Apple link. If not, you can do it manually for me. And hopefully we can have you come back on later in this year. And if you have anything new going on as well, we can bring you back on. But definitely like to bring you back on to share some more music. And I'm thinking we can have the next episode, Lord willing, we can have a session where we play more of your music, where we can actually let people listen to several different instrumentals, because I do shows like that sometimes where I play nothing but instrumentals.
That would be wonderful. We used to have radio stations that did that a lot, but that seems to have gone by the wayside now. So it is kind of a breath of fresh air to have the ability to just tune in to some really pretty music.
Absolutely. Yeah, I have 2 episodes where I did 5 hours of playing instrumentals. So we won't do 5 hours, but we could do another hour of a show.
Okay.
So thank you, sir, for coming on to the show. Have a blessed day. And thank you again for coming on. And let me have you come off here. And then let's see here. All right. So I'm gonna have you come off the StreamYard, so you don't have to stick around after this. And just keep a lookout for the review. And enjoy the rest of your day, sir.
All right. And thank you so much, ORRA, for having me as your guest today. It's been my pleasure.
You're very welcome. May the Most High bless you. Okay, that was Dave Combs. I was very excited to have Brother Dave come on to the show. And brothers and sisters, we got a lot of good things. We got a lot of great guests coming on to the show, and really looking forward to finishing out season 5, which is Great Understandings Strong. And for those of you that don't know, we just started a Facebook page again. So we have a Facebook profile, which is under my name. And then we also have a Facebook page for the Network of Awareness. So really looking forward to doing the streams on there now, which we did stream it to the Network of Awareness page today with this episode. So be on the lookout for that. I'll be sharing the links. I'm also going to have the artwork on the back end for Dave for this episode. We're going to do some editing. And then also I'm going to have all of the links where you can download Dave's music off of his website. And then, like he said, all the streaming services. So this episode is called the Spirit of Creativity. So I want to thank everybody again for coming on to the show. And if you didn't get to come on to the live broadcast, definitely download the show from wherever podcasts are played. And if you're not following us on Spreaker.com to catch the live episodes audibly, definitely do that. And I'm actually going to be giving a tutorial just to kind of do a refresher for all the new people that have come on board. So brothers and sisters, let's play this beautiful instrumental again, which is called Rachel's Song. And then we'll finish things up here. There we go. So, when you live in the present, there is always an opportunity for a new beginning. Don't look for the light at the end of the tunnel, brothers and sisters, because the light is within you. So light up the tunnel and find your way through the darkness. This is all the informationalist saying peace, love, and light. And all praises to the Most High in Christ. And until we meet again, brothers and sisters, I wish you well and shalom.
to the network of awareness.